Hey everybody, we have a very, very special live stream tonight here. This is actually the first time I've ever had a special guest on the channel, so bear with me. We might have a little bit of technical difficulties here and there. I've been experimenting with it. It should all go smooth, but just in case, bear with me tonight. But I'm just going to say hellos really quick, and then we're going to jump right into it here. We'll give it a minute or two as usual to send the notification out, get more people to come watch along with us. And while I'm going through the hellos, I have a comment pinned on the chat. The question for you guys tonight, because it fits so well with me and Ondra, it fits so well with a story he's going to share later on with you guys. The question for you is, who is a stranger you still remember to this day, and what makes them memorable? So go ahead and put your answers down in chat. And we have Scooby Snacks coming in, Lewis and Clark Travels. We got William Brody. Everybody's coming in. We got Nancy Drew coming in the house now. We got Diane Phoenix coming in. Thank you all for being here tonight. I actually did speak with Ondra too, and he is going to be doing some giveaways. So kind of stay tuned. I'm going to let him run the show with that. It is going to be a jammed-packed night here, you guys. But before we do bring him up, I want to point out, let's see, I think Lewis was talking about it. Yeah, Lewis was talking about how he cannot stay for very long today. Being real with you guys, I don't know how long this live stream is going to go. Typically, I go for an hour. Sometimes when I really get in the zone, I'll go for a little bit longer. Now, Ondra is actually my former coach. He coached me for about 3 or 4 months. And when we get on a call together, we tend to really get in the zone and just really get in the zone. And there's just so much to talk about, especially having him here for the very first time. There's so much to talk about. But mainly to catch you guys up, if you didn't watch last week's, Ondra was born and raised in Europe and dreamed about coming to the U.S. And of course, I was born and raised here in the U.S. and dreamed about going to Europe. Coincidentally enough, we both ended up going to the opposite continents right around the same time as each other. So he's going to talk about that and just so much more. But let me pull up his bio here. So who exactly is Ondra? So Ondra is a mindset coach, international speaker, best-selling author, content creator, and community leader who overcame depression and social anxiety without therapy or medication. He has worked in 8 different fields and 4 different countries before becoming fully self-employed at the age of 22. Since then, he has been a digital nomad, visiting over 20 countries. His expertise is helping individuals find their purpose and passion in life, overcome social anxiety, and start their impact-driven business. So with that, I want to just show you guys a very quick video here. Let me pull it up. And when this video starts here, if you guys can, just put a 1 in chat so I know that you guys can hear it okay.
Just one quick thing about Ondra.
This young man is taught, this 50-year-old man
grow from a person who is very shy and insecure and into a very, very confident guy.
He has a passion about him that is just infectious.
I connected to his heart, and he's been coaching and teaching me.
And I think he really understands my questions and my problems, as he's gone through a lot of them himself as well. I wasn't in the best place with myself. I did not have the best relationship with myself.
Drowning in uncertainty. I didn't know what I was doing, and there was so much self-doubt. He was in my corner every step of the way.
I really like Ondra's passion and his energy for his coaching sessions.
And I'm so grateful that Ondra is part of my life, part of my journey.
I'm at the best place that I could be right now.
I felt like I could do anything.
I'm more confident in how I show up in my business.
He is willing to put in the hard work and sacrifices needed.
I highly recommend him to anyone who is starting out in online business or content creation.
Every time when I'm on a call with him, it's a time well spent.
So if you want to take your business or your life to the next level, make sure you get in touch with Ondra.
If we have men like him, our next generation is going to take off.
Okay, so there's that video, you guys, just really hyping him up here. Ondra, can you give me a thumbs up if you're ready to come up here? He's ready to go. So without further ado, guys, let's welcome our special guest. Hey.
Hello, everybody. Hope you're all doing amazing. Thanks, Kobe, for having me. This is going to be an amazing conversation. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Thank you for being here again. We have talked about this for what, a year, 2 years now. We've talked about it for so long, and just it's so fitting right now in so many ways. One of which, though, I just want to kick it off right here. Could you share my next video? You guys don't know this, but I was telling Ondra, my next video is going to be on Salzburg, Austria. And it is somewhere when I booked my trip, it wasn't even on my radar. I didn't know what it was. Turned out to be a hidden gem. And coincidentally enough, Ondra has a story that it is one of my favorites of his. So I'm actually going to pull myself off the screen, and if you could just share that story a little bit with them.
All right, so talk about a hidden gem and traveling without a plan. Salzburg, Austria was one of those places for us as well. And I mean us and two of my friends. Well, actually, one of my friends. But I'll tell. So here's how the story goes. Me and one of my really, really good friends were traveling around Europe for a couple months. And we were stopped in a city called Ljubljana, Slovenia. And it is an amazing place as well. If you haven't been, if you get a chance, definitely go check out Slovenia as well. But we are walking through the park. Me, my friend who I'm traveling with, and one of my friends who is a local over there. We're walking through the park and we see a group of about 8 strangers sitting in the park. And they're just sitting having a picnic. And me and my friend, we look at each other and we just say, yeah, we have to go. Of course we have to go. So we start walking towards them. And as we're walking towards them, I'm in front. And my friend just taps me on the shoulder and says, hey, do the sorry we're late. I'm like, all right, cool. Yeah, let's do it. So we walk up. I'm walking up first. My friends are behind me. And I'm walking up to them. And I walk up and I say, hey, guys, sorry we're late. But what was the plan for today again? And now, of course, we didn't know these people. So they're just looking around confused. Most of them just like, do we know these people? But 2 of them absolutely loved it. And they went along with it. And they say, yeah, no problem. Hey, no worries. Come sit down. And yeah, so we're kind of like just chilling. And we're planning to go to a museum. And yeah, then we're going to get some food. They literally told us what their plans were for the rest of the day. And so we joined them. And my friend had a card game, right? Something like the Spark game, a little bit of a different brand, I think, but also question games, these questions. So we start playing the questions and we spent maybe 2 hours with them in this park, right? And we became relatively good friends, especially with the people who were really hyped to welcome us into the group. The other ones weren't so keen on it, but overall, everybody had a good time. And so it comes to maybe 2 hours after hanging out, we're about to part ways. And one of the guys said, hey, we're on a road trip here only for a couple of days. We are from Germany and Austria, kind of half and half. And on Sunday, we are taking a road trip back up to Salzburg, Austria, where most of us are staying and we're studying there. And he said, would you want to join us? What are your plans? And so again, me and my friend looked at each other and we were like, hell yeah, that sounds amazing. So within 4 days, we were jumping into cars with these 7-8 strangers to a road trip to a new country, to a new town where we've never been before, and totally unplanned, totally spontaneous. So we get to this town and it is gorgeous. There's a castle on the hill and the city is in a valley. It is wonderful. And because these people are locals, they know everything, right? So the first night they took us to this amazing lake and we went for a sunset swim in this awesome lake. My friend flew a drone. It was a whole thing. And then what an amazing experience. So I talk about who is a stranger who you still remember and what made them memorable. These people are definitely going to be remembered for a long time. And one of the guys who actually invited us on the road trip, even let us stay at his house. So we spent the night, and then the next day we moved on to Germany, where was our original plan to originally go. So out of talking to strangers in a park, we got to visit a new town that we never expected to visit, and we got an amazing experience, an amazing story, and a couple of new friends as well. So that's the story of how we got to go to Salzburg, Austria, spontaneously.
Thank you, Ondra. That one's just so spontaneous, just walking up to them as complete strangers. That always will probably be one of my favorite stories of yours. And I know we did it a little backwards here, because normally when you pull a guest up, you ask them to introduce yourself and talk about where they started and stuff like that. But I wanted him to share that story with you guys, because now you've seen a video, you've heard my bio, you're hearing this story about him, and you guys have heard my story 1,000 times. Something that we both have in common a lot of is people will talk to us about, like, oh, you must come from a rich family, stuff like that. And that is a whole different conversation. Don't get us started on that, because we will go all night long if you guys get us started on that. But I wanted you guys to hear some of the highlights about him and where he's at now. And with that, again, you're like me. You don't come from a rich family. So can you just talk a little bit about yourself and how your story all started?
Yes, of course. All right, awesome.
Wrong one.
I'm from the Czech Republic, which is a country in Central Europe. Sometimes they call it the heart of Europe. But I'm very close to the eastern border. Most of you have probably heard from Prague. None of you have definitely heard about my town. It's a small industrial town, and I was born to a family of lower class factory workers. Right, both of my parents have been working the same jobs for the past 25 years. They are both minimum wage jobs, and a lot of the times, when people see what I do now, their first reaction is, "Oh my God, you're so lucky," right? And like Kobe said, "Oh, you must come from money or all this, and you got very lucky that you can do this." Well, while luck is always, of course, a factor, a bigger factor is your mindset and your hard work. And so I will tell you my story and how it began, and how hard, or what I have had to have done. I guess that's the English. As you can tell, English isn't my first language. But it's the hard work that really matters. So as I've said, I was born in a small town to a family of lower class factory workers. But on top of that, I was born and I naturally had 3 S's. I was small, shy, and smart, which in school equals that's the perfect target for bullying, right? So I was the bullied kid in the classroom. They called me names, picked me up, carried me across to school, slapped me around, took my stuff, hid my stuff. And it caused me to have a really, really deep depression and very bad social anxiety. I was totally terrified of people. I couldn't speak to anybody. I had a little bit of a stutter. And when I got called to speak in front of the class, it was like, And I absolutely hated myself, absolutely hated my life. On top of that, my parents would fight all the time, right? We talked about the being born in a rich family. I wasn't. And I remember countless everyday fights from my parents, mostly about money, but of course about other things as well. And so they would fight every single day. And on top of that, we would get screamed at all the time, as me and 2 of my siblings. We would get screamed at all the time and physically punished. So as a kid, bullied in school, screamed at and beaten at home. Not a really great start, is it? And like I've said, it drove me into very bad social anxiety and very bad depression. But what happened was that 2 things started to completely change my life. And I say saved my life because I was very close. I had plans of how I was going to take my own life. But thankfully, I was kind of a coward, right? Shy, small kid. And I never really attempted it, but I was close. I had elaborate plans of what I was going to do. But this one incident that saved me, or I call it an incident because I don't remember how it happened, but it was actually on YouTube. And I found random acts of kindness videos. Actually, these videos were labeled Restoring Hope in Humanity. And they were compilations of people doing random acts of kindness, starting from helping somebody across the road, or giving a hopeless man some money, or even running into a building that's on fire to save a dog or save a kid. And I would watch these videos on my bed, on my phone, and I would just cry my eyes out. Because until then, I really truly felt like there were only bad and evil people out there in the world. Everybody was trying to get me. Right? At school, I was being bullied. At home, I was being abused. So it felt like everybody was out to get me. But here I saw that there were, in fact, good people out there in the world. They were out there. And I just needed to go out and find them. Plus, I have also decided that I had to become one of them. Because if I didn't become one of them, they wouldn't want to hang out with me, right? So I now had hope, and I had direction in life, as in that's what I want to become like. I want to become like one of these people doing random acts of kindness and really cares about others, cares about strangers, and gives to the world. And so they gave me hope and direction in life. But I still had social anxiety. I was still depressed. It didn't change the situation. It just gave me direction in life. So the second stage that started to completely change my life was that I went on YouTube once again, or more likely on Google first, and then I went on YouTube. But I searched for how to be happy. And maybe I didn't really expect to find anything at the time. I was just desperate. But that's how I get introduced into the world of self-help, into the world of personal development, into the world of psychology. And I became obsessed. And so since 13 years old, I've been obsessively studying, obsessively learning human behavior, psychology, neuroscience, and more importantly, how we can take these principles and apply them to our own lives, right? I wanted to apply them to my own life so I could cure my anxiety, I could cure my depression, and it worked. And over the next couple of years, I will tell some of the more detailed stories later, but over the next couple of years, I started speaking to girls on buses, I started joining groups of strangers, and eventually got to the point where I was just the story that I told earlier in Slovenia, talking to a random group of people and traveling to their country, to their city without having any plans and just trusting that they will be kind people. Which, looking back now, that kid who was scared of absolutely everybody basically cannot believe that I did something like that. And of course, the solo travels and all the other stuff that I've done since then and before that is incredible. So my story is a story of really transformation, and it's a proof of no matter where you start, no matter how you start, no matter who you are now or who you used to be, you can always reinvent yourself. You can develop more skills, more confidence, more knowledge, and completely change not just your life, but also who you are, and you can become really, truly happy and fulfilled in life.
Well said. So I want to just take a moment to mention my new book that I'm working on. I was talking to Ondra a little bit before we went live. This is so perfect in so many ways. Again, the whole born and raised in Europe, wanting to come to the United States, stuff like that. But on a different note, again, Ondra did coach me for 3-4 months. And with that, he was just talking about having basically surrounding yourself with positive people, and just Ondra has been one of those people for me. It is so important to surround yourself with people that not only thrive on their own, but will help you thrive as well. Where there's days where I'll message Ondra and be like, man, I'm having a rough day, and I'll complain, and he's just like, hey, it's just one of those days. Like, you got this. Keep at it. You can do it. And like, that is such a big part of like both of us, really, and our stories and our journey. And that's why Ondra is also actually going to be in my book that I am working on right now. I want to write about him a little bit and how he's impacted me and my journey, and just highlight some of the amazing once strangers turned friends that have made such a big positive impact. Now, I do want to give a short warning here before I ask Ondra this next question, because normally when you are on YouTube, one of the big rules of YouTube is you do not talk politics. Well, I'm going to break that rule tonight just a little bit on my end. Ondra, feel free to do the same if you want to, but I want to talk a moment about the cultural shock that we've both encountered. I'm sure you've not even just the United States. If you want to share more, being 20 plus countries, feel free. But me, I really wanted to squeeze this in tonight because I wanted to talk about like Germany on my side of things. Growing up in the United States, you hear so much bad about Germany, and I was really expecting to go there and the people were just going to be, to be blunt, complete assholes, really, and just had very low expectations. I see William kind of actually draws negative. I kind of went there looking for all this negative stuff that I was told being born and raised. And what I ended up being told on the tour was the complete opposite. The people in Germany were so nice, but the culture shock for me was here in the United States, especially personally being bisexual. Here in the United States, it's gone a lot better in recent years, but we've seen people really, really fighting for that right, the right same-sex marriage, stuff like that. One of the biggest culture shocks to me, guys, when I went to Europe was sitting in Germany, and the first ever king in Germany basically went to his citizens and said, "What do you guys want?" And the first thing was they wanted alcohol. Alcohol used to only be for the high, rich monks. Well, the king said, "So be it." He took all the monks that night. The police took all the monks, kicked them out of Germany, took all the beer, and the next morning, dirt cheap, they sold it to the citizens. The king continued, "What else would you guys want?" "A free education." "So be it." There's a free education now where if you even move to Germany, there's certain guidelines, but if you move to Germany and become a citizen, even though you weren't born and raised there, you could get a free education. And then, of course, healthcare. And then, going back to the beginning, they wanted same-sex marriage. This was all back in oh God, early 1700s, early 1800s. So we're talking thousands of years ago. And that just absolutely blew my mind when here in the United States, something like free healthcare, free education, same-sex marriage is something we have seen a lot of uproar and fighting for and against in these last couple years. So I really wanted to share that about my side of the travel, but Ondra, coming to the US and everywhere else for that matter, I want to see, what were some of the biggest cultural shocks that you've encountered?
I would say, well, the absolute biggest one was definitely coming to Asia, from Europe to Asia, because it's just completely different. You know, like it's complete, like everything is just flipped on its head almost. And of course, there are some similarities, but arriving to Bangkok, which is in Thailand, the capital of Thailand, I was just like, oh my God, what is this? Right? Kind of overwhelmed. There's motorbikes everywhere, tuk-tuks. I've never seen a tuk-tuk before, right? These like little three-wheeled motorized thingies that they drive around. And of course, language, right? That looks like scribbles. There's no alphabet. Or, I mean, they have their own alphabet, but it's like scribbles. But what shocked me the most by far was like the people and how kind and how really amazing these people are. And I mean, you had a culture shock a little bit coming to Germany, and you felt like people are friendly there.
Yeah.
Which if you go to Asia, man, it's like it's a whole different level. Like I and everybody kept telling me this, and I was like, I don't understand. Like, what do you mean? Can you describe it? And people really couldn't. And it's almost like a vibe that you feel when you get there, you experience it, and when you're there for a few days, you really like, oh, this is what everybody meant. But just to give you an example, oh, Luis, see ya. Have fun. Thanks for stopping by. To give you an example and to describe how nice and how this culture functions and how really truly nice people are to each other. You've maybe seen some videos of traffic in Asia with like hundreds of motorbikes going around, right? And then you're like, how are they not crashing? That's crazy. It seems like there's no rules. It seems like everybody's going in between each other, right? And so how they function is that they actually respect each other, and they like actually give each other space, and they're like kind to each other even in traffic, right? And of course, in bigger cities, and when it gets too crowded, it's a little bit different. But I had this specific experience that I'm going to tell you about, where I really felt like, wow, like this is how these people operate here. I was walking by on a road, and it wasn't a huge road. It was like a mid-sized road, right? I'm walking by here, and then one older lady, she wanted to cross the road, but there was quite some traffic, and so she just stepped in front of a motorbike, and two people were on this motorbike, and almost crashed into her, right? So they had to stop, like almost fell down, and the lady was like, oh, everybody was kind of shocked, right? And so what would happen if something like this happens in the US or even in Western Europe, even in Germany, right? Wow, watch out, what are you, right? And they start screaming and yelling. Both of them are angry. Not in Thailand. Everybody was just like, whoa. Like first it seemed like, of course, I don't speak the language, but it seemed like they just checked like, okay, right? And then they laughed it off and waved at each other and went on their merry way. And I stood there watching that. I'm like, what just happened, right? And there's more instances like this. And like I said, you also just experience it, you feel it as you live there or as you travel through there. But I think this is one of the examples that I can give, like, so you can kind of easily comprehend what people mean when people say people in Asia are so nice. This is how they behave to each other and to tourists and in life all the time.
It's crazy too, because even before going to Europe, I've talked about how being born and raised in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, it's like everyone's so nice up here. And I start traveling all over the country and I'm like, everyone's so nice everywhere from what I'm seeing. And then here we are, both of us, coincidentally, Germany, really nice people, is part of what my culture shock was. And then your culture shock, Asia, going there, super nice people. So a lot of people hear those words, culture shock, and they think it's automatically something really negative. It's something bad, that for individuals like us who want to travel abroad, that it's going to make it even harder to do. But in some cases, this right here shows that culture shock can actually be something really, really good.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just to follow up on that, I believe that culture shock is always good, even if it feels kind of like hard and negative. In the end, it will always be good for you because it gives you a different perspective and give a new experience that you might have not had before and that you didn't really expect like at all. So even and a lot of the times it will feel great, other times it will not feel so great. Like I've had many instances where I was just so overwhelmed, didn't know where to order food, couldn't, right? And just they operate differently. They had, again, in Asia, they have these like really tiny plastic chairs on the side of the road. And I was like, is this a restaurant? Are they just chilling here, right? And they are actually restaurants, but I was like so confused. I didn't know how to order food there, right? And then there were no normal places to eat. Yeah. So like, okay, I guess I'm gonna have to just sit down and figure it out, right?
Well, people were laughing because when I first got to Italy, and it's funny, but when I first got to Italy, the first authentic European, and I even dare say authentic? I take that back. I apologize to any Italians that are watching this right now and want to reach through the screen and slap me, but the first meal I had when I landed in Europe was McDonald's. Now, why? Because of the culture shock, really. I was there and I wasn't part of the tour group yet. I was completely by myself in the middle of not the Venice that everyone sees, but the mainland. So it's more rundown type of deal and more residential. So here I am, first time out of the country, and I have to go find food. I'm starving. I haven't ate in 36 hours, I think it was. So I went to McDonald's to try to help the culture shock. And even then, I'm like, okay, I'll use a kiosk so I don't have to talk to anybody. Oh my God, the kiosk is in Italian. You guys, it took me 5 days on this trip to figure out I could change the language on the kiosk to English. So I'm like trying to order in Italian and German, and
at least it has pictures, I guess, right?
Yeah, that's exactly. I was like, okay, what looks good? Okay, that looks different. I'll order that. But yeah, little things like that too that culture shock, lots of people also think like it's something really, really big. No, it could also be something as simple as I need to go get food, but where do I get it? Or in Europe, one of the coolest things culture shock wise for me was the waiters and waitresses. They don't come up to you and check in routinely. Hey, how's your meal? Hey, they do that here in the US all the time. So going to Europe, I was like, oh my God, you're telling me I have to actually flag them down when I'm ready to leave and stuff? I did not like it. My social anxiety, that part of me was so scared. And then you know what, guys? I ended up falling in love with it to the point where the very first night back in the US, I went to the hotel restaurant I was in, and the waitress checked on me probably 5 or 6 times. I kid you not. She brought me a burger and fries, because what's more American than that? And before I even took a bite of my burger, she was coming over. Hey, how's your burger? Hey, how's your food? Hey, how's your food? Hey, you need more water? I messaged my mom, who used to waitress, and I was like, I swear to God, I cannot deal with this anymore. I want to go back to Europe. Just leave me alone and let me eat my food. It's little things that you might not even think about.
Yeah.
So you guys know my story about going to Europe, at least partially. I apologize. You guys know I've stopped uploading the last 2 months, but we'll get back on that. So at this point, I want to transition. Ondra, being born and raised in Europe, finally got to come to the United States. So can you talk a little bit about that and what your experience was like here? I know a lot of people were really excited to hear your outside perspective.
Yes, the US. So I will start by saying this. If you're growing up outside of the US, especially, 10 years, 12, 15 years ago, the US really had great marketing, in a sense that, like, from outside perspective, it really seemed like this world of dreams. There's nothing wrong, right? There's no problems. If you come to America, anything is possible. And it's like this holy grail of countries where everybody wanted to go all the time, right? And so, of course, reality is different, right? Like, every country has its issues, every country has its pluses and its minuses. But I think that's a good place to start, as in, like, they really, whoever is they, right? It really really made it seem like it's the absolute total dream country. And well, I think Kobe can now vouch for that, and to say that there are really awesome places out there, right? And I wouldn't say which country is better or best. I would say go out and explore and decide what's for you. But so I would start there. But my own experience, I landed in Los Angeles, and first thing I noticed is really, like, cars everywhere, all the time, big roads, long distances spread out, right? So the always have to be in traffic was a big kind of, I guess, culture shock in a way for me, because I was used to living in places where you don't have to use a car basically at all, right? And you still get anywhere super fast and easily. You can walk most places where I've lived. And so that was a part of my adjustment period. Another thing that I noticed was billboards and ads everywhere. And it's not like we don't have ads and there's no ads or billboards in other places in the world, but it just felt like they were everywhere. I made this little clip with with my GoPro when I was walking through LA. In this one tiny intersection, there were 5 billboards for the the TV show Reacher. For I think it was like second season or whatever, right? And so you're standing there, everywhere you look, there's these huge billboards for this one show. And I was like, isn't that overkill? Like, isn't that too much? So we don't have that many ads and billboards. Hopefully, well, not yet. Hopefully not ever, but you never know. So that was a part of it. And how one other part was how spaced out and how far away things really were. Hello, Amy. Welcome. I'm just telling my experience being a European, finally coming to the US. And so cars, billboards, ads, busyness, of course. But that's, in every big city. But the distances was something that I've noticed, and that was funny to me. It was funny to me, but this wasn't in Los Angeles, in California. This was in Maryland, close to DC, right? So I also got invited to Maryland to visit one of my mentors, and I stayed at his house. I met his kids, and I met his wife, and this specific instance includes his wife. And so I'm at the house, and it's in the suburbs of DC, and I want to go to the city, right? I want to go explore Washington, D.C., the capital of the United States, right? And so I say, hey, like, how can I get to the city? And she said, well, we have a metro. There's a metro station, there's a metro system. And she said, she said this, the metro is right around the corner, like the station is right around the corner. And I'm thinking, perfect, right around the corner. That probably means like 5 minutes, 5 minutes if I walk, right? It didn't. And by the way, us Europeans, if you live in a city in Europe and you say the metro station is around the corner, it literally means it's around the corner, like the next street. But what she meant was the metro station is 1 hour walking distance away. And so I look on the map, right? And I'm thinking, okay, it's going to be like 10 minutes walk maybe. And I open the map and it says 50 minutes walk. And I'm like, well, that's not around the corner. What do you mean? And she said, well, yeah, I never think about walking. Like that doesn't even cross my mind. Why would you even think about walking? I meant with a car. And it was still like a 10, 15 minute drive. So that was a big difference, how we comprehend distances and how we travel and how we commute. Not really travel, but how we commute, right? Because if you live in a European city and you say train station is around the corner, it is actually up to 7 minutes walking distance right around the corner of the street, not half an hour, or not that you have to drive, right? So that was an experience that people are always thinking in terms of cars and driving, no matter what. And another thing is how big the states really are. I think that's something that most Europeans cannot really comprehend, because if you go on a train ride, let's say from my town, I go on a train, I spend 2 hours on a train, and I'm in a different country. I spent 4 hours on a train and I've crossed 2 countries at this point in Europe, right? 2 completely different cultures, 2 languages, everything else. If you hop on a plane for 6 hours, you're in Asia, like you're in a different continent at this point. If you hop on a plane in California and spend 6 hours on the plane, you will land in DC 6 hours later and it's still the same country. So the distance and like the size of the country itself, I think is a big shock as well, in a way, of like when you really experience it and you're like, oh my God, this is still one country and it's so huge. That's incomprehensible for us Europeans, because our countries are tiny and our continent is really small. So it's you drive for a couple of hours and you can cross countries, and you can go to 3 countries in the same day if you drive fast enough. And if you spend only a couple hours, like an hour in each country, you can go to 3-4 countries in the same day, which there's no way you could do that in North America. So that would be one. And I guess normal living experience. But that would, like, what's coming to my mind is like how unfriendly and rude almost people were. But I think that's an experience of living in a bigger city. And if you go to a smaller town, people are always friendly. But like when we were in LA, and you're passing by some strangers and you wave at them and you say hello, they look at you weird. They don't reply, which of course happens everywhere. But so the overall friendliness of a country, we always determine by like the frequency, right? So if I say, if let's say I go in Europe, in let's say Germany or Czech Republic, similar cultures, and I go and I wave at 10 strangers, maybe 5-6 of them are going to wave back and smile. If I go to Asia and I do the same thing and I wave and smile at 10 people, 9 of them are going to smile and wave back with an excited expression. And if when we did this in LA, we had maybe 3-4 people who smiled and waved back, right? So it's the ratio of how often people are, like how many people out of a total number are going to be friendly and willing to open up and speak to you or interact with you, even so on the streets and in a friendly way, of course. So I think those would be my thoughts, isn't like right now. And of course, if anybody who's watching, if you have any questions about like something specific, if what I thought about this or what I thought about that, I'll be happy to answer. And yeah, so those would be my like initial thoughts.
There is so much, like, this is how you know we're getting in the zone again, because you'll say something and I go, oh my God, that's a really good point. I need to talk about that. So, God, there was so much in there, so many. But the big one, talking about the transit, all of the cars here in the US. Yes, that was a big culture shock for me, vice versa, going to Europe, and so many people in the group that was with me, because every time we changed cities in Europe, every single time, I kid you not, someone would go, wow, there's not a lot of vehicles around here. Wow, there's not a lot of roads around here. It's a lot of walking. But on the flip side of that, there's also a lot of public transit. And I want to talk about that a little bit on the Europe side of things, because here I was coming. Oh, hold on, I just want to pull up Amy's comment here.
Amy has a great question.
I don't know if you mentioned this yet, but what about apartments here versus where you're from? Okay, yeah, so you want to talk about that a little bit?
I would say AC, air conditioning, is basically not a thing in Europe. In a lot of places in other places around the world as well. So that would be that's always something that I notice right away. And damn, apartments.
Was there a drastic like size difference at all?
So it's hard for me to compare because I've lived in so many different apartments in different countries and different locations. It's kind of a blur almost, but I think it depends on like the quality and the price, of course, and the location of always. And so I haven't stayed in that many apartments in the US, actually. I lived in houses, right? And I know houses are very popular in the States, and that's why everything is so spread out. And we do have houses in Europe, by the way, right? We do have houses, and a lot of people live in houses as well. Okay, she said, yes, size, style, and prices. Prices are lower in Europe, by far. Like, cheaper, a lot cheaper, especially if you go to places like Italy, Spain, Greece, Czech Republic, even Germany, right? So I would divide Europe into Northern Europe, Western Europe, Eastern Europe, and Southern Europe, right? So Eastern and Southern Europe, very cheap, like comparatively 5x cheaper than the States, maybe. Western Europe, and Northern Europe, expensive. Northern Europe, very expensive. Can be more expensive than the States. Western Europe, around the same prices as the States, as the US, right? So that's what I would say with prices. If you go to Eastern Europe, you go, let's say, Romania, you're gonna pay $500 and you're gonna have an amazing 2-3 bedroom apartment with a modern kitchen and really awesome places. And then if I have to compare, when we're comparing apartments, by far Asia, again, like Asia was by far the best. When we were in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, which is the capital city of Malaysia, huge city, very modern, lots of public transport, but also car transport, and everything super modern. Everything super modern, everything super accessible. Our apartment, our studio apartment was, damn, how big could it have been? Maybe 6 by 4 meters, which in feet, I don't know. You're gonna have to do your own translation. It was a nice sized modern studio, and directly in the building we had access to a rooftop pool and a gym included in the rent.
What? I want that.
What is a studio, 1 bedroom, except for young people? Yeah, 1 bedroom or a studio, right? So we stayed in this very nice studio with a rooftop pool and a gym and a nice overlooking, we could go all the way up to the rooftop. It was like 40 floors or something crazy, and you had a nice view of the city skyline. And if you want to take a guess, Kobe, by the way, you can stay up on the stage as well. But if you want to take a guess, like actually take a guess of how much do you think this cost? What about utilities? Utilities are way cheaper. Way cheaper, I would say. Both in Asia and in Asia, way cheaper. In Europe, probably cheaper as well. So really, like, take a guess of what this studio with a pool and a gym, and by the way, there was a supermarket downstairs and a restaurant attached to the building as well, directly.
I remember when you were there.
Yes. So, like,
That
if
was
you
nice.
really take a guess in the chat, how less than 300? Okay, well, that's a far that's a good guess relatively. It's a little bit more than that. It's a little bit more than that.
Anyone else?
Anyone else? Well, I would. Damn. Usually, U.S. people guess like in the thousands because that's what it would cost in the States, right? But maybe because I'm talking it up so much,
Yeah.
it's like really cheap. But yeah, if you can find a for something like that for less than 300 or for 300, you get lucky. It's possible, but you would get lucky. 400 is a little bit closer. It was around $550 for 2 people, right? So basically, yes, less than 300 per person because it was two of us. But the studio itself was around 550, and yeah,
I do think
incredible.
Didn't even think about this until Amy's questions asking about apartments. I think it's a good time to mention, though, too, that you are a little bit of a different nomad compared to what they have seen from me and my channel here, because many of you have seen me living out of my vehicle, traveling throughout the United States, and now, I'm settled down with this job temporarily here, and I'm doing some country travel, but stay in hostels. Like, I go through tour groups, stuff like that. Ondra, that is not the case. He is like Salzburg, just really kind of like a spontaneous. He still plans everything out. Like he has a business. But he's also like me in the sense that he kind of goes with the flow. As he's mentioned earlier, he'll stay with people at their houses, their apartments. So that is how he is a nomad on his side of things.
Yes, I stay in mostly Airbnbs a lot of the times, right? And I'm really surprised. Are Amy, Scooby Snacks, and Nancy, are they all from the States?
Yep.
I've never ever seen the like people from the States guessing that low. I've never seen that before.
Yep.
But anyways, just a fun little note.
Absolutely, Amy,
Yes.
too. He's saying it's still a nomad life.
It is.
And
It is.
that's the point. A lot of people hear nomad and they think, oh, you're living out of your vehicle. And part of that, I think, is because so many creators, especially at least here in the United States, have been showing that nomad living out of your vehicle lifestyle. The van life, as our housing has skyrocketed in price and become more limited. But really, it goes back to the old definition of a nomad. You really don't settle down in one place for too long. You're constantly moving. So that is something to keep in mind, that it is there's multiple different ways to do this. And that's something too, going back to your conversation earlier about like the culture shocks and stuff. I was going to talk about the transit. When I was in Salzburg, now you were there. I don't know how often you use the public transit, but when I was there by myself, like what ended up happening is I had one day there, and you guys will see this on my next video. But in the morning, we did a group like tour of the city and whatnot. And then in the afternoon, everyone else did a Sound of Music tour because that's where that movie was filmed. And I didn't. So I was completely by myself in this city. And to make it even more interesting, my phone did not work in Austria. So I had no service. So here we are at night, alone, without a cell phone. And I was able to use their transit system without speaking their language. Like, just there's so many barriers, and Ondra knows this just as well as I. So many people want to do what we do, but they'll make excuses all day long. And we've talked about it. Some of them, they're legit excuses. They're good reasoning, but at the end of the day, it's up to you personally if you're going to let those stop you, because here we are proving that it's possible. Again, not coming from family that had a bunch of money. We've both experienced some drastic culture shocks. We've gone to places where we don't speak the native language, but they all turn into these phenomenal trips. And I mean, they're also not all sunshine and rainbows. Ondra can talk to this about this a little bit. I don't know if there's anything in particular you'd want to mention, but since we don't come from a rich family, you guys know I have hardships. Ondra, is there a moment in time in particular you'd like to share too?
Oh yes. Life is what you make it. Adapt and overcome. Hell yes, Amy. Absolutely. And I see this all the time. People, like Kobe said, it's valid reasons why you cannot do something, and it might be actually seem like a valid reason, but in reality, it's just an excuse that is disguising itself as a real reason why you cannot do something. And so you have to be really vigilant of, is this really something that is a reason that will stop me? Like, can I really not do it? Or is it just my brain keeping me inside of my comfort zone, keeping me safe and keeping me doing what I know instead of doing something that maybe I have never done before? And that's scary, right? But to the financial side, like, if we can stay on that for a bit, people always say, like, that's the number one thing when people go immediately, I would like to travel, but I don't have money. Immediately, people say that, right? There's so many ways how you can travel very, very cheaply, firstly, and secondly, almost free. Like if you can, there's websites and services like Workaway, for example, or World Packers, where you can literally go volunteer and you can stay and have food for free if you can get yourself if you can get yourself the transport to get there, which a lot of the times doesn't have to be that expensive. Even from the States, the plane ticket that I paid from LA to Mexico City was like $120, right? It doesn't have to be that expensive. And if you're in Europe, you can take a bus that's going to cost you $30, $40, $50, and you can go to a different country, way different country, to a completely different place. But again, right, even if we're sticking by in the US, there's always options, right? And how you can test this, super easy test, if it is a valid reason or if it is an excuse. When your brain says, or when somebody else says to you, I would love to travel, but I don't have money, ask them how much they need. Oh, how much do you need? And they never know. If you don't have an answer to that, then the money isn't the problem. The problem isn't here. But if you say, "Oh, I need $2,000," okay, is that true? Can you do it with less? And if so, might be okay. How can you get the $2,000? Do you have to save up for it? Do you have to take a different job? Do you have to get a part-time job? Can you freelance? Can you do some services on the side? Can you start a business? Can you do something different, right? But most people say, "I don't have money," and that's it. They don't dig any deeper. They don't look into how much money they would need or how could they get the money. What are remote jobs? What are businesses? How can I start this? How can I do that? I started with basically no money. I was making $3 an hour loading trucks when I first started my business, when I started working on my dreams to travel around, right? But I didn't say I don't have money, even though I didn't. I said, okay, how can I get the money? How much money would I need? How can I make that money? And it's just a tiny mindset shift. You go a little bit deeper beyond. And that valid reason, or maybe you really don't have the money in your bank account right now. Hi, Rocky. Maybe you really don't have the money in your bank account right now. So it is an actual reason, but it's still an excuse disguised as the reason, because you could go out and get the money and find a way. And so that's the thing about one of the excuses. And of course, there's always, I do believe that there is always a way if you try hard enough and if you look hard enough, if you do enough research. And you would be surprised how many different options there are these days, right? Like, and very budget friendly. That's what I'm doing right now. Amy says, no money to invest, but I'm making money anyway. Well, yeah, perfect. Do that and save up little by little, invest little by little, start a business and just learn, right? Most people, they say, I don't have the money, and they complain and they say, I'm too busy to do anything else. They just work 40 hours a week in a full-time job, and that's it. Right? Like I can't tell you how many people I've had them tell me, I have no money and I have no extra time because I work a full-time job. I'm like, what else are you doing? Full-time job is 40 hours a week. Like, that's it? You're way busy with one full-time job to do anything else, right? Well, like, okay, let's go hour by hour. And most often people are not open to do that. They're like, no, I don't want to talk about it anymore, right? And that's like, okay, well, you're doomed. Right? Mm-hmm. But then the people who are open to talk about it a little bit more, right? We go through their schedule day by day, week by week, and then it turns out, 2 hours wasted on YouTube here, 4 hours wasted on Instagram here, 3 hours wasted on Facebook here, right? Or 3 hours wasted on smoking weed and playing games with friends here, going out, hanging out, right? And then there's these so many hours that you could actually utilize better. So again, self-defeating mentality, right? Exactly, Amy, right? So we've deconstructed two excuses that people make most often. I don't have time, I don't have money. Those are the two most common ones. Complete crap, like that's not true, right? When I started, I will tell two specific scenarios because that's what you asked for. I wanted to pre-frame this a little bit. When I started and I dropped out of school to pursue my dreams full time, my parents said, okay, if you're gonna drop out, we're not gonna support you anymore. You have to start working so you can pay rent in the house. You can stay here, but you're gonna pay rent and you have to pay for your own food, right? So I had to start working a full-time job so I could pay rent to my parents at home, which I think was a great move by my parents, by the way, because it prepared me for the real world, right, very early. And I didn't have any cushions. I didn't have a free chill stay, and it made me work. Anyways, I had to go to a full-time job, and in the Czech Republic, the wages are a lot lower. Cost of living is a lot lower, but wages are a lot lower. So I was making around $3.50 per hour, right? Which worked out with a normal full-time job, with one full-time job, worked out to be about $450 per month, right? Which I had to pay $200 rent, $200 rent, $100 food, and then I had like 100 extra left for whatever, right? Investing into my business or doing whatever I wanted, right? So I was buying these weird courses for like $40, $30, $50 and trying to learn about businesses and such. And nothing was really working. And then I came across a coach who was like a business coach and doing it for years. And she was like, I did her like free challenge and I spent some time with her. And I really knew that she could help me, but I was like, I have no money to invest, right? And then I thought, okay, well, is this something that I think is going to be really good for me? Yes. Do I need it? Basically, yes. Okay, how can I find a way? I talked to the coach and I said, what's the lowest amount monthly that I could pay? What's the lowest amount? And she said, well, my program is $2,500. I'm like, $2,500? Holy shit! For 3 months? Are you crazy? Like, I don't have that kind of money, right? I'm making $400 a month. I have like less than $100 extra left off at the end of the month. And she said, well, okay, so what I could do? I'm not going to lower the price for you. I'm not going to lower it. I'm like, okay, so what then? Well, what I could do is, I'm gonna split it into a payment plan, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna spread that 3-month program over 12 months, and it's gonna be like $220 per month. And I'm like, well, it's still a lot more than I have. You know, that's like double what I have, but maybe I'll find a way. I'll get back to you. I'll go talk to my boss if I can work extra hours. Went to my boss, asked for extra hours, and he said, hell yes, you can work extra hours. We need the work. And so I ended up working up to close to 70 hours a week, which brought my pay close to $650, almost $700 a month, right? Working basically now at this point, almost 2 full-time jobs, right? 60, 70, sometimes 80 hours a week, morning and afternoon shifts. I literally slept 3 hours a day for most of the week, just so I could pay for a coach. And so I signed up for the program, and so at this point I'm working basically 2 full-time jobs and working on my business on the side still to get it going, right? So money excuse, I don't have time, I don't have money, all that went out of the window. I said, how can I make this work? How can I figure this out? That was my humble beginnings. And then the second scene that I wanted to say is, fast forward years and years later, I've already been doing my business for 3 years. I already quit my job. I've been already traveling full time for more than half a year and doing my business full time. And what happened was 2 of my clients who signed contracts all of a sudden backed out of the deals, and they say that they cannot pay, and they ghosted me, right? And maybe they had good reasons, maybe they didn't. It was something that was completely outside of my control, right? But all of a sudden, I found myself in a foreign country without getting paid, and obviously I really needed the payments. And so the situation was like this. I was literally 1 week away from being completely homeless, with no money, in a foreign country half across the world with no money coming in, right? Only 1 week to figure out what I'm going to do and how I'm going to solve this. And thankfully, I was able to solve it and sell a couple books, sell a couple courses, and then eventually started rebuilding. New clients came in. So I was able to handle it and work it out. But that was a week that I didn't really sleep, right? That was a bunch of sleepless nights. So again, this I don't have the money is an interesting one, because a lot of the times it stops people when really it doesn't have to, and you can kind of always find a way. By the way, I wouldn't recommend. I feel like I have to say this sometimes when I share the story of being 1 week away from being homeless and having no food in a foreign country with no money, no income, no promise, no income as in like coming in, right? I had to find a way to create the income first. I don't recommend that. Like, don't do that. If you can avoid it, avoid it. If you don't have to put yourself into a situation like that, avoid it, right? Like, don't be dumb. But sometimes in life, you all probably know this. Life happens, and especially if you're building something on your own, life will happen and things will go unexpectedly completely wrong. And a lot of the times when one thing goes wrong, 3 other things will go wrong at the same time. So you will have to be able to figure it out and move quickly. But it is always possible, and you can always find a way if you work hard and if you have the correct mindset and if you are persistent, if you really stay on it, if you don't make the excuses, right? I could have made so many excuses and just messaged some of my friends or even my family who wouldn't be happy with me at all, and I would get a lot of scolding, but they might have helped me out in that situation, right? But there was something that I knew I didn't want to do, and because my family wasn't a big fan of my, which is a completely different story and different situation that I can share a little bit later as well. But yeah, you can always find a way. And Amy said, many want a guarantee on success of anything before they move forward. Yeah, there's never a guarantee. Like, you have to create your own certainty, your own faith from inside, and believe that you can do it and believe that it's possible. In my mind, there's nothing I cannot do. That's the attitude that you have to have. Otherwise, it's like there's nothing you can do in life.
Yeah. I think this is a perfect time now, just because you're talking about so many barriers and so many reasons and excuses people put it on hold, and you're talking about coaching. It's perfect time right now. So Ondra and I did talk a little bit. I'm not even sure exactly all what is included in this. Hold on, Amy's saying I have failed over and over, but the lessons learned are priceless. Absolutely, Amy. So with that, you guys have learned a little bit about Ondra. You're hearing about the coaching. You're hearing that he has courses. He has books. So Ondra has agreed to do some giveaways. So I have the tool up on my screen right now. So let me put something in here. We are going to do, let me put this as the word. We are actually going to use Ondra's, not his name, but the RoboHumanist. It's going to be hashtag RoboHumanist is the word to put in the chat. Let me share the screen here. So anyone who wants to be entered into these giveaways, please put that into the chat at this time. And I am going to jump off of the screen myself and leave Ondra and this word up. And Ondra, can you just talk about what you want to give away here tonight?
Yes. All right. So we talked about this a little bit with Kobe, and what I'm going to give away is going to be 1 month of free one-on-one coaching, and then it's going to be a copy of a course that is about developing a business mindset and confidence and business mindset. And then I have a couple of copies about my books, which are like short ebooks, PDFs, guides about overcoming social anxiety and making deep, long-lasting friendships. Plus, I am right now in the process of writing a small guide about finding your purpose, how to find your purpose. So that can be a part of it as well. If you win the PDF, and then yeah, you can get that one too. Once it's ready, once it's finished, it's gonna be maybe next week.
Okay, so while we are waiting for some people to put this in chat, I see there's 4 in the house right now. I know we lost a couple along the way. We did go over an hour, which I figured we would. I mean, between the two of us, we just get in the zone, and I'm having a great time tonight. I hope you guys are. I hope Ondra is. I thank you again for doing this. Absolutely amazing. One thing I do want to talk about, let me take this off the screen here. I'm actually just going to type it in chat myself so you guys have a copy of it. There we go. And that way we can pull Ondra and I back up bigger on the screen. So one thing I do want to take a moment to say, just because I feel the need, we have to say it at some point. I want to go back. Ondra was saying you can't really rank. It's hard to rank one country over another type of deal because there's always good, there's always bad. So with everything that was said tonight, I really hope you guys don't take anything away from this live stream like, oh my God, well, he hates the US, or Kobe hates Europe, or like, I hope you guys aren't like that, because a big part of what we do is keeping an open mind. And Ondra said it so well. There is good and bad anywhere you travel. That is how it is. Oftentimes, in my experience at least, and I think Ondra will probably agree with this, there's usually more good than bad, but it does really depend on where you go to. Like here in the US, you'll hear people talk so bad about Chicago. I've been to Chicago countless times. It can be an absolutely amazing place. But I will also admit that there is a part of Chicago that you should not go to. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You do not go to that part of Chicago. That is the thing, and it's not just countrywide at this point. It is having both me going to Europe, but Ondra, again, over 20 countries here. He can back me up on this. Wherever you go, there's going to be a little bit of good and a little bit of bad.
Yes,
so
100%.
And
so
keep that mind, open mind.
To add to that, I would want to add that I had an absolutely amazing experience in the United States. I loved it. It was really, really awesome. Right now, I'm in Mexico, loving it, having an amazing time. Right, and sometimes you will have not so great experience the first time, maybe, but even I've had a couple of experiences when I had a awful time the first time I was in the country, and then I came back the second time and I was like, wow, okay, this is actually great.
There's a short story that just popped up in my head, if you're willing to share it. Speaking about good and bad, how about that time that somebody spit on you?
Right.
How about that time?
That was in LA. That was the only place where that's happened to me was in America. That was in LA, and it was in Venice Beach. and I was literally just waiting to cross the road. And I think this person was maybe on drugs, maybe on some heroin or something. She had a crack pipe, she was smoking something, and she was sitting next to the pole with the red and green light signs, right? And she just started screaming at me like, I was on my phone. I was replying to a text while I was waiting for the light to change. Didn't even look at her. Didn't even look at her at all. And she just started screaming at me like, "Why are you taking a picture of me?" and some random shit. And she's just complete nonsense. And my friend immediately just like ran away, and I was just like trying to ignore her, but at the same time I was like, I didn't take a picture of you, like whatever. Like I interacted with her like a little bit, which apparently was a mistake. And she just was continuously screaming at me, "Go cross the road, get out of my face." I'm like, there's cars, like there's a red light, there's literally cars on the road. I'm not walking into the road to get smashed by a car just because you're yelling at me. Come on, right? And then yeah, she was like, "Get out of my face," and then she spat on me, and then finally the light changed, so I walked away, and she was screaming, "Get the fuck out of!" She said something like, "I killed Princess Diana" or something. I don't know. Like it was just weird. But what I always think is, you never know what this person's going through. You never know what's in their head. You never know. I mean, she was smoking something. You know, she had literally what looked like a crack pipe in her hand. So she was. You don't know what's happening in these people's lives. So I don't really judge it much. I don't get angry. I was ready to knock her out if she attacked me. But yeah, that's about it. You gotta be ready, I guess. But yeah, that was it.
There's multiple reasons why I wanted you to tell that one, and part of it was going back to the good and the bad, but you did touch base. You have to be prepared. In this case, obviously, you didn't have to self-defend yourself type of deal. But that's something too. People, when it comes to traveling, whether it's here in the U.S. only or across the world, so many people worry. Like, for example, my Kenya trip. I just found out that there is a travel warning by the U.S. government for Kenya because apparently there was a terrorist attack there. Now, many people, as soon as they hear this, they become panicked and they go, "Kobe, maybe you should cancel this trip." I think there's a difference here. And Ondra, if you agree with me or disagree, let me hear your thoughts here. But I think there's a fine line where you need to be prepared, not paranoid. So you have to think realistically, like, what could go wrong? And if something does, what will I do? Versus always panicking and always going, "Oh my God, this could go wrong, this could go wrong, this could go wrong," and then you just don't do it. Which I wanted to clarify here because a lot of people might call me out on it right now. I was supposed to be going to Niagara Falls for the eclipse tomorrow. That's not happening. I want to point out, though, there is multiple good, fair reasons with that. One of which being Rocky was just neutered. He's a little aggressive around people right now. Probably not a good idea to bring him out in public where there's going to be 1 million people watching a solar eclipse, because you also don't know how the solar eclipse is going to react to Rocky. So, like, some good reasoning there. Some good reasoning. But I'm also, like, I'm being more prepared versus paranoid, going, "Oh my God, there's 1 million people. Like, what if I get in an accident? Or what if this happens? Or what?" There's a difference. There's a difference there.
Yes, 100%. Be prepared. You don't have to be paranoid. Don't freak out. Like, always staying calm is a skill, right? Like, everybody says, just calm down, stay calm. Sometimes people don't have that skill yet. So first of all, practice that, right? if you really want to know, I'm not going to get into that, but a great resource for practice of being able to practice that is obviously some sort of meditations. For me personally, biggest impact one book that had biggest impact on my life in this area was The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and it was absolutely amazing. Really impacted me in this way. But try and stay calm in situations. And what I wanted to point out, what I wanted to add is, don't succumb to like the judgments, or like don't give in to the judgments of other people for one specific country or for one specific situation. Like you said about Kenya, right? There was a terrorist attack and people are telling you to cancel the trip, like it's not good. I would say do research about what is actually happening in the country. And Scooby, I see your question. I will get to that soon. Great question. Thank you. Do your own kind of research, right? And try and talk to people who have been in the country or who are in the country.
Yeah.
Don't just listen to the news. Don't just listen to people who have heard something, and they don't really know what they're talking about. For me, actually, this is so funny that you're asking about you probably saw my ring, right? So I'll get to that. But my mom is one of these skeptics, one of these scary, paranoid people. She enjoys to travel, but she will always stay away from certain countries. Excuse me.
There we go.
So she will always. Yeah, I muted myself to.
It froze for just a second there, so I was like, "Oh, maybe he just sneezed himself right out of the live stream." But we're good. We're good. You're back.
No, so my mom is always paranoid, always freaking out, right? And then, so the first time she really freaked out was when she found out that I was going to go to Asia by myself, right? Asia over, oh my God, it's so scary. Somebody's gonna steal your kidney. There's gangs and stuff. So she was freaked out about that. Then specifically more when she was like, okay, Thailand is still like a tourist place, right? Very popular. Many tourists go there. But I went to Cambodia, which is not as popular. And she didn't know anything about Cambodia except that there's gangs potentially, right? Which isn't really that true at all. Like there's not many gangs in Cambodia, but that's what she believed, that's what she thought, and she was like so freaked out that I'm going there by myself, and she just didn't know, like it was out of ignorance. So but if she really dug into it, she would find out that it's a super safe country. People are incredibly friendly. Everything is safe. There's no terrorist attacks. There's no shootings. There's no stabbing. Nothing. Like it's safer than most of Europe. It's safer than the US, right? But that was the perception that my mom had from whatever place. Mexico would be a similar example.
Yes.
My mom freaked out when she found out that I'm going to Mexico. But okay, bear with me here. Mexico is one of those places where you can get kidnapped by the cartel and you can get robbed and shit can happen, right? But if you're not dumb, if you're smart about it, if you do your research, if you talk to people who've traveled there, if you stay away from the super dangerous areas and you go to the places where you can go, where it's safe, right? There's always areas like this area is safe, this city is safe, this area of the city is safe, and that's the same in the US. And like you said, in Chicago, there's an area in Chicago that you should not go to, and if you go there, you're putting yourself in extra danger.
Yep.
Right. So that goes for whole countries as well. So, but my point would be like, listen to what other people are saying, but don't just like judge it and like do extra digging, and then really listen to somebody who actually had an experience of the country, not just somebody who said it's super dangerous, there's too many gangs, don't go there, and you're gonna get kidnapped, killed, whatever. Right.
It goes back to having that open mind. You use the word ignorance at one point. Lots of people hear that word and they think it's such like, how do I word this even? That it's a really bad thing, which it can be. but it's also something that you shouldn't go, well, I'm not ignorant at all. Like, no, you should have an open mind and look into these things, but you should also be willing to admit that, hey, you know what? Maybe I'm wrong. And
Yes.
maybe like this is going to be a lot better, a lot safer than, for me, Germany. Thought the people were going to be really mean there. That's what I thought. That's what I was born, kind of raised, grew up hearing. Germany's a really mean place. I will be the first to say I was wrong. Bless you. I will be the first to say that I was wrong, though. So you have to be willing to have that open mind and be willing to admit when you're wrong.
100%. 100%. And I will touch on this, and then we'll get to Scooby's question about my wife.
Yeah. Yep.
Ignorance isn't necessarily a bad thing, but what you discover when you start to travel like this is you discover how ignorant you actually are, and how ignorant cultures actually are towards other cultures, towards other people, right? And Mexico would be a great example. Like, I had this judgment as well, right, in a big way, and I was surprised how awesome Mexico is. Right. And I had lots of judgments and ignorance about Asia as well. I thought that it's going to be like these villages, and then it's not advanced, and then it's like these ridiculously cheap countries that are like doing very bad economically, and it's all going to be shacks and stuff. And then you get there, it's like these huge cities, super modern, super advanced, right? And that was my ignorance part, which I completely got shattered when I got there and when I experienced it, right? So we have all of these assumptions and these judgments that are not true, that you basically cannot break any other way unless you get there. And then you get there, and then you're like, whoa, oh my God, I made so many judgments. I was so ignorant about this place that it's like completely different now. Like, and I think India might be one of those that, for me personally, and I think for a lot of people as well, but India is one of those that's like very scary to me still, right? It's maybe not scary, but intimidating in a way.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that, actually, because I just had that conversation. The way they drive in India, all of that different stuff, I'm like, that's overwhelming, and that's very intimidating.
It seems scary and intimidating. I definitely want to go, and I will go, and I believe that I will have an amazing experience, and I will be like, this is great, this is awesome, and especially as you get used to it a little bit more. And I have so many friends who've been there and who lived there for a while as well, and absolutely loved it. So yeah, but still, my brain is still, oh my God, it's scary, it's intimidating. There's still the judgments there, like a lot of ignorance as well, as in like how in advance it's gonna be, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so that's one that I'm looking forward to. Okay, so I'm gonna read this one. Fear is programmed into our psyche from birth. It continues to be thrown us everywhere. It took me years to reprogram stuff. Yes, 100%. And so, Amy, great comment, and great job, by the way. It's not easy work. So great job if you're doing to do that. And Scooby, does my wife travel with me? So first of all, I don't have a wife. I am engaged. And the answer to your question specifically is sometimes she does travel with me, sometimes she doesn't. She is from Cambodia, and I met her while I was traveling, and it's a great story. I was literally doing free hugs when I met her, and we got to talking, and she ended up being one of the most amazing human beings I've ever met in life, and we are still in a long distance relationship right now, because, and this comes to as a surprise to a lot of people. Her passport is really, 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 really bad. So there is no way, literally no way for her right now to come to Mexico or to come to the United States, to come to America. No way. Like she couldn't get through. She wouldn't get through the border. They wouldn't let her on the plane. She would have to go to the embassy with this fat stack of papers, proof of income from the past 3 years, proof of travel tickets, proof of stay, everything booked in advance. And then she has to wait maybe 5-6 months if her visa is going to get approved, and then very likely still get denied. And traveling with her was extra stressful because we never knew if they're going to let us into the country or not. And to compare, my Czech passport, my passport from the Czech Republic, European passport, has about 156 countries where I can go visa free or visa on arrival. This means that you just show up to the, or you do, when I went to the US, there's a program called ESTA, right? I literally just apply online, pay $20 and get approved within a day, and I can just show up. She cannot do that. It's not an option for her. So she has to go through this really elaborate process. And to finish up with the passports, with the numbers, my European passport has about 156 countries where I can go like this freely. US passport, I think is around the same, maybe 160, maybe 150, something around the same number. Okay. So the world is very free for us to travel easily. For her, her Cambodian passport is about 40 countries that she can go visa free or visa on arrival. And most of them are her neighboring countries around Southeast Asia. And then the rest are small, tiny island countries in Oceania or in the Caribbean. And that's it. Other than that, she really has to go through all of these like super elaborate, complicated processes. It cannot be online. She has to literally go to the embassy. A lot of the embassies don't even exist in her country. So she would have to go to Thailand, to the embassy in Thailand, and do the application process and then wait for months. So that's a little bit of a reality check for how freedom, how our freedom privilege with our Western passports works, and it's great. I know a lot of people are not aware of this, and they think that everybody has the same thing, but no, they are very, very. They have very limited options. Some people have very limited options with their passports. And if you are a fan of Yes Theory, which I know both of us, me and Kobe,
that's
are.
How we met, so,
right?
Yeah.
So you probably know that Amar, one of the main guys in Yes Theory, had to go through this process with his passport, right? Because he had to go through all of these visa checks and all that, and then he bought the passport, bought the citizenship by investment, which is the way Amy asks, will that change when we get married? The answer is yes and no. It could, but it won't just by being married. So just by getting married, she doesn't get a passport or a citizenship. And if you're traveling, it doesn't matter if you are married to a foreigner. It only matters with your passport, with the passport that you have that you can show them. Doesn't matter if you are in a relationship or if you're married or not, or who you're traveling with. They really don't care. Only care about the passport that you're holding in your hand. And so I've heard of many married couples that have two passports, right? Like one European passport and one passport from Africa, let's say. And they always have to go through the visa process with the African passport. So it kind of doesn't change. It potentially could change, as in she gets more likely and she gets a better chance of getting a citizenship in Czech Republic when we get married. She gets a chance to have a citizenship, and with the citizenship she gets a passport which then allows her to travel the world freely. However, for her to get that citizenship, she would have to not only get married but also live in the country for 5 years, and then she can apply for a citizenship and get the passport, right? So in other words, she gets a long-term stay visa, but not a citizenship, not a passport. She gets a long-term stay visa for my country and the Schengen area, because that's the contracts that the countries in Europe have. You can if you have a visa for one country in Europe, you can go anywhere. So, or almost anywhere, you know, if it's in the treaty or whatever it's called the Schengen area. You can look up what countries those are. So yeah, it kind of changes, but also kind of doesn't. So the only way to really change that is to get a different citizenship and a different passport, and that's so messed up. Yeah, it's not fun. It is not fun, and
that's where
yeah. So the ways to change that.
You said, like, you, what were your exact words? You said something about how people tell us we're lucky, but you mentioned privilege, and that this is all kind of part of that. It's you can say, oh, you're lucky because we can travel with our passports and she can't, but it's also kind of just a privilege that we were quite literally born with, that just we were born with, but then there's others that you can put yourself in a position to get that privilege.
It's much worse. But here's the thing, talking about luck and privilege and hard work and all that, I have friends, and I'm thinking of this one person in particular. Her name is Crystal. No, that's a different one. Damn, what is her? I just literally forgot her name right now. All right, I'm hopefully she's never going to see this, but if you're watching this, I do apologize that your name fell out of my head right now. But this girl is from the Philippines, which is a very similar situation to Cambodia, right? Very bad passport, and she's been to more than 60 countries, and she's been traveling the world for 4 years full time, right? And so again, hard work and not making excuses and saying, okay, my situation is I have a third world country passport, which is limiting me in lots of ways. How can I find a way? What can I do? And I can't tell you her specific tricks. I can't tell you her specific tricks in this. I didn't talk to her in that much detail into it, but I know it's possible because she's done it, and she has her own Instagram account where she's documenting the journey. So I will try and find it. And Crystal, who I was thinking of, is a different friend who is also from the Philippines, and she's living in Dubai now, but that's besides the point.
While you're looking it up, Amy has a question here. Would it be easier to come to the United States for citizenship?
Nope. No way. No way.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, Ondra, but really the only way you'd be able to even try that would be if you got the citizenship first, then married, and then she could try through marriage to get it.
Yes, exactly.
So it would just be adding an extra layer because now you got to get the citizenship, which would make it a little bit more tricky. Not to say that it can't be done, but it definitely would make it more tricky.
No, once again, you don't need to elaborate. I get it. So she has much higher chance in Europe because I'm European, right? If I was from the States, that would have been a different story. But yeah, so basically the best chance that we have for our situation right now is going the same way that Amar did, and buying a citizenship by investment in one of the Caribbean countries and getting a passport from there. And if we are married, they have a great program. If we are married, we both get the citizenship and we both get the passports. So I can potentially have a dual citizenship, which is kind of a flex, you know. It's not necessary because my passport is already great and my citizenship is already very good. But it is a nice benefit, you know, benefit to have.
So I'm going to share the screen here again, too, while you're looking it up here. And just remind everyone that is the word to put in chat to be entered into the giveaways. And I see there's only 4 in the house right now. I am one of them because I have YouTube pulled up on the second monitor here, of course.
I think it's Amy, and then we have Scooby, and then someone
Yeah.
else. Oh my gosh.
And we're going on 2 hours here, so it makes sense. So if anyone watches this later on, Ondra, would you be willing to do this later on? If someone's rewatching this, they can tune in live.
Of course.
We'll
Let me
pick
know.
someone from the comments.
Let me know.
Yeah, so if you guys are watching this later on and couldn't tune in live, just comment down below, and Ondra and I will work together. We'll figure something out, and we'll make sure these giveaways go to somebody who can really benefit from it, because I saw Amy was talking about that a little bit. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find your comment now here, Amy, but where is it? There it is. As much as I appreciate your giveaway, I would love to see another person than myself to take advantage of this generous offer, and I really appreciate that, because Ondra is a very busy guy as well. So, like a free month of coaching, we want to make sure that's going to somebody who genuinely is serious about it and is committed.
Yep.
Because then it's saving, it's not wasting Ondra's or the winner's time.
Yep. And but I have to say that Amy, you seem like an amazing person, and thank you for being here. And Scooby as well. But Amy, we interacted quite a lot, quite a lot more. So thank you for the engagement. It was really great to get to know you a little bit and your mindset as well. And I found my friend. Her name is Kristen. So I was close. And she just recently seems like she just recently hit her 10K subscribe to her 10K followers on Instagram. And she makes really cool videos, and she goes around volunteering. That's one of her strategies, and she's been traveling the world for 5 years straight, and with her third world passport, and she talks about it a little bit as well. And she's really cool. She's really awesome. So you can go check her out if you're more interested in that side of the world and of the travel with difficulties. and how she's been traveling the world for 5 years full time.
So I see Scooby Snacks saying good night here. Amy saying
Good
to
night,
have a
Scooby.
great night.
Like, bye, Amy. Good night.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, Amy. So, Ondra, I'm gonna take you down, but if you want to just stay kind of on the software a little bit, I'm just gonna wrap this up, and then we could talk one-on-one a little bit. But before I do kick you off the screen here, again, thank you. We've talked about this for like 2 years.
What's a pleasure.
So awesome to finally have you on here, to hear about your, like, share your perspectives, to share some of your stories that, like, man, I've heard so much about you. You guys, you seriously need to look him up on Facebook. He's just, the stuff you post every day too, it keeps me inspired, keeps me motivated. So if you guys are on Facebook, I highly recommend checking them out. And yeah, just thanks again, because I had a blast again. I see Amy saying we need to bring you back here. So if that's something you're willing to do, I would love to have you back on the channel at some point. There is so much we could talk about. There's so much we talk about one-on-one. So we'll look into it, Amy. I'm glad you guys really enjoyed this, and I thank you all for being here tonight too. So I will talk to you in a little bit here, Ondra. But yeah, I thank you all for being here again. I know we went for longer than a typical hour, but this was a very special live, and having Ondra as the very first guest, someone who, again, he's going to be in my next book. A lot of what we talked about tonight is going to be the basis of that book, such as there's no such thing as luck. It's all about opportunity and privilege and putting yourself in those different positions, investing your money. This is the first guest speaker here on the channel, and I am going to start doing more of those moving forward. Many of you already know Nate from Land Cloud Adventures, but I have a special idea in mind. I'm going to reach out to him and see if he'd be interested to come on here. But so much awesome stuff. So with that, I'm going to end the live stream. Thank you all for being here, and have a great rest of your night.